the iPhone 14 Pro Max 1.5 years later. Is it worth it to buy in 2024? Let's talk about it. So, the iPhone 14 Pro Max has been launched 1.5 years ago, and have been using this phone, or at least I've used this phone for 1 year straight. And after that, my father has been using this phone, and some time to time I revisit the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Sometimes because of my choice, and sometimes because I need to fix some things that is wrong with this phone for my father. So, if you are a techie in your family, you know what I'm talking about. Solving problems is your everyday. But again, 1.5 years after the iPhone 14 Pro Max has been released, is it worth it to buy in 2024? Is it cheaper than the iPhone 15 Pro Max? And is the price difference worth getting the iPhone 14 Pro Max over the 15 Pro Max? That's a very interesting question, and I do actually understand why you are coming from that. You want a shiny new iPhone. You are looking to buy a cool new phone. But you just think that the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it's too expensive. And you are thinking, well, I guess I will save some money and buy the 14 Pro Max. Should I get it? Well, that's a very tough question to answer. But in today's video, I will help you out decide if you want to buy the iPhone 14 Pro Max, how's the experience been in the last 1.5 years, how does it stand in 2024, what are the features that are still new, what are the features that are outdated, what does it miss from the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and of course, is it worth the price that I paid in 2023? So, don't forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel, let's talk about it. The iPhone 14 Pro Max design is the same as the iPhone 13 Pro Max design, which is also the same as the iPhone 12 Pro Max's design. This is the same design as the iPhone 12s, and it's actually very interesting because if you think about it, a 3 year straight of the same design is normal for every single iPhone generation. So, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is the last of its kind in terms of design generation. The iPhone 15 Pro Max now features the new curved corners and the new curved edges on the phone. It's still the flat edge design, but the contoured edges give it a more comfortable feeling. While the iPhone 14 Pro Max has these very sharp edges that make your phone feel very premium, but it can cut into your hand a little bit. While the iPhone 15 Pro Max, for long periods of time, it's more comfortable. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max is also the heaviest iPhone ever. This iPhone uses stainless steel and glass, while the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the newer iPhone, features titanium. So, the big differences in terms of build quality and design between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and 15 Pro Max, and it may actually be a deal breaker, is the extra weight on the 14 Pro Max. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is heavier, noticeably heavier, about 20 to 30 grams heavier because it's made of stainless steel. This is a more heavier material and it's also less durable than titanium. This is shiny and you can get tons of fingerprints. Just look at this mess of a phone. I don't know if you can look at it because of the light, but this is full of fingerprints and it's actually very, very dirty. It's very tough to keep the iPhone 14 Pro Max design, especially on this matte black color, clean. You have to use a microfiber cloth every day to keep it clean and shiny. If you don't, it will get very smudgy and with a lot of fingerprints, especially on the stainless steel sides. But again, I just think that the iPhone 14 Pro Max looks amazing with this matte black color. The iPhone 15 Pro Max matte black is not as dark as the iPhone 14 Pro Max because of titanium cannot be anodized to have this darkened color. So, in terms of colors, I think that the iPhone 14 Pro Max's matte black is better than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But overall, the design on the iPhone 15 Pro Max gets a win because I just think it's worth to pay the extra money in terms of the design side to get the titanium frame, to get the lighter feeling and to get the more balanced feeling. This phone feels heavier, less balanced, with the weight more balanced to the sides and upwards instead of being overall more efficient with size and weight. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max, do not get me wrong, still has the same 6.7-inch OLED display, 120Hz capable, as the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And the iPhone 14 Pro Max was the first iPhone ever to feature the Dynamic Island. Yes, this beauty right there. Dynamic Island was firstly introduced with the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. It's an amazing feature. And especially when Apple released the iPhone 15 with Dynamic Island, lots of developers have been developing new features for Dynamic Island, and now it's more useful than ever. And the Dynamic Island, now present on the iPhone 15, has been way better on the iPhone 14 Pro Max since iOS 17, because of course, more developers, more consumers, just get more features. And cool, 1.5 years later, we definitely got more features for Dynamic Island. One of the top top-notch features on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And of course, this is the last iPhone with Lightning. I was trying to avoid talking about Lightning, but this is such an elephant in the room that I need to talk about it. Lightning is dead. As you know, Apple switched to USB-C with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And now the iPhone 14 Pro Max is the last iPhone with Lightning cables. This is, in my opinion, a deal breaker for you. You should not buy Lightning iPhones new in 2024. If you are looking into used iPhones or refurbished iPhones, maybe getting a Lightning iPhone isn't that bad. Maybe you are coming from a Lightning iPhone, and getting a Lightning iPhone is not a hassle for you. But getting a USB-C iPhone, that's a big difference. After 6 months with my iPhone 15 Pro Max, I gotta tell you, USB-C is amazing. Having the same cable for everything, charging my iPad, charging my Mac, charging my camera, charging my drone, charging my iPhone is simply incredible. While having Lightning, just a single-use port to charge your iPhone, well, it kind of gets old after a while. And now going back to the 14 Pro Max and revisiting Lightning iPhones, I just feel that they are obsolete, they are outdated. And although the phone feels still incredible, the design, the display, everything is still top-notch, the Lightning cable is a deal breaker for me. So pay attention. If you are looking to buy an old iPhone, especially an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is still very, very expensive, this will still cost you $850, $900 used, then be very, very careful. This comes with Lightning, not USB-C. If that's a deal breaker for you, do not buy the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Buy an iPhone 15 with USB-C, refurbished, or cheaper with a discount. Do not buy a Lightning iPhone if that's something that bothers you. As for the rest, the speakers, the hardware itself, it's still premium, top-notch, better than 99% of the smartphones out there. This is still the best hardware Apple produces. The buttons still feel very clicky, still feel very premium after 1.5 years of everyday use. The lock button. The phone looks new, brand new. It's a bit smudged up, it's a bit dirty, but the durability of this phone is unmatched. 1.5 years later, this phone is still a champ, still feels like a champ, still feels brand new, and still feels $1,000 worth. Again, the iPhone 14 Pro Max started at $1,100 with 128 gigabytes of storage. This is the 256 model, so it costs $100 more. So it's about $1,200 for the 256 gigabyte storage model, while the iPhone 15 Pro Max started at $1,200 with 256 gigabytes of storage. Again, that's the same price. So people were asking and were wondering why Apple increased the base model price of the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Easy. Apple killed the base generation, the 128 gigabyte model. They do not increase the prices on the 15 Pro Max. They simply killed the base model. And the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I thought, should have done the same. 128 for a phone that can record ProRes 4K video is simply not enough. But here's the thing. This display is 120 Hz. This chassis feels like the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Everything in this experience feels like the 15 Pro Max. But one thing that is not like the iPhone 15 Pro Max are the cameras. The cameras on the iPhone 14 Pro Max are really, really good. This was the first time that Apple introduced the 48 megapixel sensor on an iPhone. And you can notice the photos are very, very sharp. The photos are almost DSLR-like. The video is amazing. Everything here is top-notch. But since I've bought my iPhone 15 Pro Max, I have been surprised by the amount of times that I use the log video, the log feature video. That's so good, so useful, and makes your iPhone video actually look like a DSLR video, like a mirrorless camera video, that I cannot simply trust or recommend the iPhone 14 Pro Max if you want to shoot professional video for social media. If you have a social media account and you are looking for an iPhone to film all of your videos and all of your content, then look out. Buy the iPhone 15 Pro Max and use the log feature. That's so incredible because it's almost like raw video. It gives you the flexibility to edit in post, and it solves the issue of sharpening and too much processing on the video side for the iPhone and for smartphones in general. While the iPhone 14 Pro Max does not feature the ProRes log video. So that's a bummer. I know that's a bummer, but hear me out. The iPhone 14 Pro Max also has incredible features on the camera side that almost look alike like the iPhone 15 Pro Max. For starters, this has the 48 megapixel sensor, almost the same sensor as the 15 Pro Max. So low light shots, midday shots, everyday shots. This camera for social media, I wouldn't say video, but social media in general, photos and everyday photo taking is amazing, incredible, and way more than you need. It's actually completely overkill. Can replace a DSLR for photos. These look incredible. The 40 megapixel mode, the RAW Max mode, insane, very, very useful, and I loved it when it came out. 1.5 years later, I can tell you, I've definitely used it several times, and I think it's a pretty cool feature to have. And then there's the ultra-wide camera. This is about the same ultra-wide found on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Not that much difference there. So good midday performance, not that great low light and extreme low light performance. Again, if you want to take photos with the ultra-wide camera at night, I wouldn't say it's the best. So again, one of the best in the industry, but still not on par with the main sensor. As for the telephoto, this has a 3x telephoto, not the 5x present on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And that's another bummer. That's another deal breaker. If you are looking for a very high performance zoom phone, then the 14 Pro Max is not for you. This has a max zoom of 15x using a crop on the sensor. If you are using the optical length in terms of zooming, you will be limited to a 3x telephoto, so equivalent to about 77 millimeters. While with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, you will have a 5x, or equivalent to 120 millimeters. So the differences between this camera and the iPhone 15 Pro Max camera is flexibility and especially specs. It does not actually sound that believable because this is a 1-year jump, 14 Pro Max to 15 Pro Max. But the cameras on the iPhone 15 Pro Max are better in photo, better in video, and better while zooming. So they're actually much better. If you love your camera and you love using it for professional content for social media, then hear me out. Pay the extra $200-300 for the iPhone 15 Pro Max and you will thank me later. The ability to record log footage is just insane. It will fix all of your issues with iPhone video. The ability to use the 5x telephoto is actually very handy when you are not thinking about it. And of course the main sensor is better, takes better pictures, better videos overall. So I do believe if you care about the camera, the extra money that you pay for the 15 Pro Max is simply better and worth it over the 14 Pro Max. If you don't really care about the camera, you like to use it for social media every day, but you don't really care it for professional use, to make money, then the 14 Pro Max camera is way overkill for you, and it's definitely not a deal breaker on this phone. 1.5 years later, I still take amazing pictures with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and you will also too. Amazing video, amazing pictures. This camera will not age like milk. This camera will age very well. It has a 40 megapixel sensor like I've been telling you, so trust me, you will take amazing pictures 2-3 years from now. The display on the iPhone 15 Pro Max is a 6.7-inch, 120Hz, 2000 nits peak brightness display, while the display on the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a 6.7-inch OLED, 120Hz, 1500 nits peak brightness OLED display. So they are about almost the same display. The only difference is the extra peak brightness on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So outside, the iPhone 15 Pro Max brightness will be a bit better to record video and photos, because under direct sunlight, it will be more shiny, so it will be easier to see than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is useful for all of your photographers or videographers using your iPhone 15 Pro Max during the very harsh sunlight. So if you want to do that, then the 15 Pro Max with the extra brightness will be useful. But here, inside or outside, not being midday, like bright hours, very harsh sunlight, then the 14 Pro Max will be like extremely bright, way overkill, and you won't notice the differences between the 14 Pro Max and the 15 Pro Max. And you need to be careful because that extra brightness can drain the battery faster. But here's another deal breaker about the 14 Pro Max that the 15 Pro Max fixes: battery life. The 14 Pro Max was not the best in terms of battery life. The 13 Pro Max was a battery champ, and I loved that battery life. 2-day phone easily. But then I got 14 Pro Max, and because of always on display, the iPhone 14 Pro Max was the first iPhone to actually get always on display. So if that's a big thing for you, then the 14 Pro Max has it, the 15 Pro Max also has it, and it's actually very cool now. I've used it on my 14 Pro Max for 1 year now, I used it on my 15 Pro Max for half a year now, and I love it. I use it every single day, I learned to love it. At the beginning, on the 14 Pro Max, I turned it off, for the same reason that I do not like my iPhone 14 Pro Max to be on the peak brightness side, because of battery. The battery on the 14 Pro Max was actually very disappointing, while on the 15 Pro Max got much better. The iPhone 14 Pro Max was about 1 day phone for me, not more, while the 15 Pro Max is definitely 1 day and a half, 2 days stretching it. For the last 1 year and a half, surprisingly, the iPhone 14 Pro Max only dropped 10% of its battery health. So, if battery life is a big thing for you, spending the extra $200-300 will give you a better camera, will give you simply smaller bezels and of course way better battery life and a smaller and more premium build in my opinion with the titanium sides. So if that's worth for you, then paying the extra $200-300 is actually worth it. If not, if you don't really care about the cameras, you don't really care about your battery, you just want a cool phone that looks good, that feels premium, looks like an iPhone, has iMessage, has FaceTime, and your budget is between $800 and $900, and especially you don't really care about USB-C, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is definitely a great choice. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think that the iPhone 14 Pro Max is still worth it 1 year and a half later? Do you think it was a good phone? And do you have an iPhone 14 Pro Max? How long have you been using your iPhone 14 Pro Max? And of course, which is your favorite color? This matte black, the purple, the gold, the silver? Let me know in the comments down below which one it is. So, don't forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for watching. Bye bye.